Hey guys, tonight we're traveling somewhere your weather app won't save you. Imagine this, an endless stretch of frozen white, wind carving your eyelashes into icicles, and somewhere out there, past the snow mounds and sealskin tents, a voice rises, not shouting, not angry, singing. Yes, that man just challenged his rival to a full-blown diss track under the northern lights. And you probably won't survive this place, not because of the cold, but because you'd fumble the lyrics by verse 2 and get laughed out of town. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching from somewhere warm and cozy, drop your location and local time down below. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself trudging across a snowy expanse, boot prints muffled by fresh powder. The sun never quite rises, just kind of loiters behind the horizon like it forgot something. Welcome to the Arctic, specifically the Inuit homeland. Not the tourist version, but the bone-deep, wind-burned, pre-modern reality. The year? Somewhere before clocks mattered. You reach a small community, more a cluster of low igloos and stretched hides than a village. Everything smells of seal oil, driftwood smoke, and snow that's seen things. People move quietly, wrapped in furs, their breath visible like little ghosts of conversation. And while it seems peaceful, don't be fooled. Tensions build here like steam in a covered pot. After all, when your neighbors are also your hunting partners, dinner guests, and potential romantic rivals, even a misplaced glance can lead to drama. But here's the twist. Instead of grabbing a harpoon or giving each other the silent treatment for 2 months, although that happens too, the Inuit had something far more unique in their conflict resolution toolkit. They sang about it. Not sweet lullabies or group hugs set to music, but biting, hilarious, occasionally scandalous song duels. Imagine a roast battle meets slam poetry night, only everyone's wearing 6 layers and the stakes are impressively high. The wind rattles the hide flap as you enter a communal igloo. It's warmer than you expect, even cozy. Elders sip something hot and fishy, kids quietly in the corner, and someone's muttering under their breath. Not praying, not talking, practicing. There's tension in the air. Someone's been insulted or flirted with the wrong person, or borrowed a spear and returned it dull. Whatever the cause, a challenge has been issued, and tonight, there will be singing. You sit cross-legged beside a man with a face like cracked stone. He whispers, "Big duel tonight. Amaruk challenged Nuka." You nod like you know who those people are. Spoiler, they're both legendary in this village for turning grievances into punchy lyrics. You glance outside. It's twilight, but then again it always is. The stars begin to appear, sharp against the velvet sky, and people shuffle in quietly. There's no formal court here, just tradition, expectation, and a strong community memory for who roasted who 5 winters ago. Now here's your mainstream fact for the evening. The Inuit, especially in regions like Baffin Island and across Arctic Canada, regularly use these song duels, ayayait, as a form of conflict resolution. Instead of escalating violence, they turn personal feuds into public performances. The crowd would listen, sometimes laugh, and occasionally cheer. But crucially, they'd also remember. Win or lose, your lyrics were now part of the village's oral record. Rough day for the guy who rhymed seal fat with, "You're bad at that." Historians still argue whether these duels were legally binding, socially enforced, or just a fun community pressure release. Some accounts suggest serious disputes, like accusations of theft or adultery, were settled this way. Others say it was more symbolic, a way to vent before things got out of hand. What's certain is that it worked more often than it should have. And here's a fringe tidbit for you. In some communities, the winner wasn't necessarily the one with the best lyrics or voice. It was whoever got the loudest laugh or simply had the cooler head. Basically, Arctic Idol meets Judge Judy with no real judges. You hear a low beat start. Someone's brought out a hand drum. It's not flashy, just a taut skin stretched over wood, but the sound is mesmerizing. Like a heartbeat, steady and grounding. The crowd hushes. The first singer, tall and narrow-eyed, steps into the circle. He doesn't bow, doesn't smile, just starts singing. You don't understand the words, not really, but the tone is unmistakable. It's teasing, sing-song, and cutting. He mimes something with exaggerated sadness, maybe his rival's terrible fishing skills. People laugh, low and warm. A few groans too, either from secondhand embarrassment or because that verse hit a little too close to home. It's hypnotic. The cadence, the harmony with the drum, the way the crowd leans in as one. You start to forget how cold it is outside. You forget your name for a second. Then the rival steps forward. He waits, lets the silence stretch. His voice is deeper, slower, more mournful. His lyrics paint the first man as a childish braggart who once cried because his boots froze to a whalebone. This gets a roar of laughter. The audience is lapping it up, clapping on the offbeat, grinning under frostbitten brows. You're witnessing a duel without violence, a court without gavels, a judgment based on humor, presence, and the ability to throw shade in musical form. Not bad for a society most textbooks reduce to snow people who hunt seals. By the time the singers bow and the drum fades, the tension has drained from the room. The dispute, whatever it was, isn't just resolved. It's been turned into community folklore. Tomorrow, it'll be a joke shared over dried fish. A generation from now, it'll still be remembered, maybe even sung again with new lyrics and updated insults. And you're hooked. Not just on the performance, but on the logic of it. Somehow, in this frozen place, people found warmth not just in fire or fur, but in laughter, in song. You wake up the next morning, or what feels like morning, given the soft twilight that passes for dawn in this part of the world. It's not that the sun rises so much as politely peeks in and then excuses itself again. The air inside the igloo is warmish, at least by local standards, though your toes might disagree. You step outside, snow crunching underfoot like stale crackers, and stretch. Last night's song duel still hums in your memory. The rhythm of the drum, the cadence of the insults, the soft eruption of laughter after each barb. And although peace was technically restored, you notice that one of the singers is scrubbing fish guts with just a bit more aggression than strictly necessary. Let's just say grudges don't melt quite as fast as snow around here. Still, the magic of it lingers, and you begin to realize, to truly understand why this tradition works, you need to get a feel for the place where it was born. Life inside an igloo isn't what you think. First off, it's not freezing. Ingeniously insulated with compacted snow, body heat, and animal oil lamps called kuliks, it's closer to slightly damp library than Antarctic nightmare. You share the space with extended family, maybe a dog or two, and at least one uncle who snores like a walrus. It's crowded, sure, but there's a comfort to it, like being permanently on a camping trip with people you both love and sometimes really want a challenge to a sing-off. That closeness is part of what makes song duels necessary. With so much shared space, shared food, and overlapping responsibilities, tensions don't just simmer, they saute. Someone took your good mittens, lied about catching the biggest seal, made eyes at your partner. There's no separate man cave to go sulk in. You're going to see that person at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and all snack-related intermissions in between. So what do you do when there's a problem? Do you stew silently while awkwardly gnawing on blubber jerky? Do you gather your friends and escalate into passive-aggressive snow sculptures? No, you write a song. The process begins subtly. One night, you hear someone humming a suspiciously pointed melody. The lyrics aren't finished, but the intent is clear. It's happening. The musical gauntlet is about to be thrown. What's fascinating here is how structured it all is. Song duels didn't happen randomly. They followed specific social rhythms. Some communities held dueling nights during festivals or the long, dark winter months when tempers flared and entertainment was otherwise limited to watching the ice not melt. Other times, duels erupted spontaneously when a conflict could no longer be contained by grumbling alone. And these weren't just freestyle rants. They were crafted, practiced, and delivered with the precision of someone who knew their reputation was on the line. A song duel wasn't just about being right. It was about sounding right. Mainstream historians agree that these duels were as much for the audience as for the combatants. The singers didn't just speak their truth, they performed it. Your opponent accused you of being lazy? You respond with a clever twist about how he once mistook a rock for a walrus. Everyone laughs, the social pressure shifts, and suddenly you're winning, not by violence, but by rhythm. And that's where your fringe fact of the day comes in. Some Inuit singers were so good at dueling, they developed signature vocal styles, nasal falsettos, comically slow phrasing, or even sudden yelps mid-line to throw off the competition. One man was reportedly so talented at mimicry, he'd imitate his opponent's speaking voice mid-song to make them sound even more ridiculous. Honestly, it's the kind of thing that would break TikTok if it still existed up here. But what makes it all tick? What keeps someone from just getting mad and punching their way out of a disagreement? Partly, it's the community's presence. Song duels happen in public for a reason. Everyone watching created a kind of social gravity. You couldn't storm off mid-duel without looking weak. You couldn't cheat the rhyme without losing respect. And you definitely couldn't bring a knife to a lyric fight. Also, there's the not-so-small matter of survival. In the Arctic, nobody thrives alone. You depend on each other for food, for warmth, for protection from polar bears that honestly seem like they need a nap themselves. So while you might loathe someone's personality, you're still going to need them on that next hunting trip. Song duels helped air grievances without permanently severing ties. And yet, historians still argue whether this system truly prevented deeper conflict or just delayed it. Some sources suggest that beneath the playful insults and chuckles, real hostility sometimes lingered. Did these songs offer catharsis, or just a catchy cover for serious beef? As you watch the village go about its business, you start to see the daily routines that made song duels feel almost inevitable. People haul sleds, stretch seal hides, scrape snow from the igloos, all while engaging in that very particular Arctic form of small talk, quietly competitive storytelling. Someone boasts about catching 2 narwhals. Another person hums a little tune that sounds suspiciously like the phrase, "Liar, liar, frozen pants on fire." The lines between conversation and verse are already blurry. No wonder the leap into full-on performance feels so natural. You start to imagine what your own duel might sound like. You'd write about that one guy who always takes the last piece of whale meat, or the way someone's boots make an unfortunate squeak every time they walk. But you'd have to be careful. It's all fun and games until someone mocks your snowshoeing technique in front of grandma. By the end of the day, you understand something deeper. Song duels aren't just entertainment or therapy. They're necessary. In a world where physical isolation is impossible and social tension could mean life or death, words are your best tool. Words and maybe a really tight beat. You start to settle into the rhythm of the village now, not just the pace of footsteps over packed snow or the creak of sleds pulled by dogs with suspiciously judgmental eyebrows, but the human rhythm of stories and songs drifting through the air like wood smoke. There's a pattern to it all, like a heartbeat under a fur-lined parka. Today, you're taken along on a seal hunting trip, and let's just say it's not your most graceful moment. You trudge behind a seasoned hunter who, despite being half your size and at least twice your age, moves across the ice like it's a ballroom floor. You, on the other hand, have the gait of someone trying to sneak across bubble wrap. But no one laughs, at least not out loud. The hunter is quiet but kindly. She points out the breathing holes in the ice where seals might surface, and you realize that seal hunting isn't about charging in with a spear and a war cry. It's about patience. You wait, still as a statue, while the cold gently negotiates with your bone marrow. Hours pass. The sun hangs low and orange like a sleepy eyelid. Your mind wanders naturally to the idea of tension. How in this world conflict must wait, just like the hunter. Here, nobody has time for a grudge when your next meal depends on your ability to sit motionless for 3 hours without blinking. But that doesn't mean conflict disappears. No, it's merely delayed, filed away for a more appropriate venue. And that venue, as you now know, is the song duel. When you return to camp, cold, sealless, but spiritually enriched, you hear of another upcoming duel. This time it's between 2 cousins, which everyone agrees makes it extra spicy. Apparently, one of them accused the other of borrowing a sled dog and returning it slightly more aloof. Scandalous. Now's the perfect moment to talk technique. A proper Inuit song duel isn't just "you said, I said." It's a carefully constructed piece of rhetorical art. Verses are short, 2 or 3 lines at most, and delivered in a rhythmic chant, often with the help of a hand drum. The drum beat is your heartbeat, your punctuation, and your mic drop all in one. You don't just recite your grievances. You weave them with clever metaphors, subtle mockery, and, when feeling especially confident, a healthy dose of exaggeration. The audience isn't there for truth alone. They're there for style. If you can make a serious accusation sound like the punchline of a joke, you've basically won. One well-documented duel from Baffin Island included a man accusing his rival of having the breath of a rotting walrus. In response, the rival retorted that at least his wife didn't keep mistaking other men for her husband. The crowd reportedly laughed so hard that one elder spilled their stew. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some communities even encourage children to observe and practice song duels as a way to learn social boundaries. Nothing says conflict resolution like an 8-year-old roasting her brother for stealing caribou jerky with the musical timing of a Broadway star. It's adorable and mildly terrifying. But not everyone followed the same format. While Eastern Canadian Inuit often used a style called a ja-ja, rhythmic and melodic, others used more monotone or breathy techniques. And some communities incorporated throat singing, a rapid percussive vocal art usually performed by women, as a tool for indirect commentary. Historians still debate how uniform the tradition truly was. Were song duels more theatrical in certain regions? Did the colonial presence, missionaries, traders, officials, transform the tone or purpose over time? Some argue that duels shifted from conflict resolution to entertainment as outside influences encouraged Inuit communities to perform their culture for visitors. Others insist that the emotional core remained intact, regardless of who was watching. You wander into the igloo where tonight's duel will be held, and it's already buzzing. People bring dried fish, tea, and that one elder who always hums ominously when gossip gets juicy. The two cousins are sitting apart, knocking at each other. The drum rests between them on a pile of sealskin. It's almost time. Someone dims the flame in the kulik. The room dims, and everything slows. You're surprised at how ceremonial it all feels. A soft hush falls over the group, anticipation wrapped in warmth and snow. The first cousin stands. He's got that glint in his eye that says, "I've been saving this burn since last spring." He beats the drum slowly, each thump echoing in the ice walls like a countdown. And then he sings, "You called my dog your friend, but he came back cold, colder than your soup and twice as bland." A pause. The audience chuckles. The cousin smirks. The other cousin stands, accepts the drum, and counters, "You think yourself clever, a poet of frost, but you lost your gloves and your dignity last week, for by now, you're starting to grasp that life in the Arctic isn't just about surviving. It's about surviving together, and to live together in close quarters, often buried under months of snow and silence, you need more than skills. You need finesse, and maybe, just maybe, a decent singing voice. You wake up the morning after the cousin duel feeling oddly inspired. No, you're not about to challenge anyone to a vocal sparring match over who finished the last of the dried fish. But the performance echoes in your head, the timing, the cleverness, the almost therapeutic laughter of the crowd. It sticks with you like frost on your eyelashes. As the camp stirs to life, you're invited to join a group heading to visit another nearby settlement. Nearby, of course, is a generous term in the Arctic. It involves a dog sled, a wind so persistent it deserves its own name, and at least 4 hours of numb cheeks. But along the way, you're treated to stories. One woman tells of her grandfather, who was known across several communities as a legendary song duelist. He once defeated a rival who accused him of stealing a fishing hole. Not the fish, the hole itself. The rival claimed it was in his favorite spot, which, as you might guess, was not legally binding. The grandfather's retort? A song in which he lovingly described the rival's favorite spot as the only place where even the seals yawn. You're starting to see that this wasn't just some novelty act. It was a deeply social mechanism, a way to perform disagreement, to package anger into art, like a verbal snow sculpture, expressive, fleeting, and, if well constructed, beautiful. What you learn next makes you pause. These duels weren't always about petty squabbles or misbehaving dogs. Some were heartbreakingly serious. When relationships ended, especially romantic ones, it was common to turn the pain into performance. One partner might initiate a duel, not to win necessarily, but to publicly air sorrow, frustration, or even longing. The result wasn't courtroom drama. It was closer to poetry night at a very chilly, very emotionally literate cafe. One preserved song fragment from a woman in the Western Arctic recounts the bitterness she felt when her husband left her for another. But her verses weren't just angry, they were haunting. He brought her berries, but brought me none. I taste only snow, while she tastes sun. That's rough, not just emotionally, but technically. It's a clever bit of metaphor, and likely earned a stunned silence from the crowd, maybe even a gasp. Historians still argue whether such deeply personal duels were encouraged or merely tolerated. Some believe the community viewed them as cathartic, a release valve for complex emotions that had no other socially acceptable outlet. Others argue these more intimate performances were frowned upon if they strayed too far from lighthearted mockery. The truth likely varied from village to village, year to year, generation to generation. But the songs, those survived. Or at least the memory of them did. Inuit oral history doesn't archive facts the way textbooks do. It remembers the feelings, the reputation of a singer, the melody that made children stop squirming, the line that made even the oldest elder crack a smile. You finally arrive at the second settlement, face windburned and dignity partially intact. The mood here is lighter than last night's duel. A wedding is coming up, and people are preparing Aja! Festive songs often shared during celebrations. It's a different energy entirely, but the roots are similar. You still feel the beat, the layered meanings, the gentle teasing baked into even the kindest verses. Someone hands you a drum. You smile, panicked. You tap it, once. The dogs glance up like, really? That's it? You hand it back with the universal expression of, I'm just here for the vibes. Later that evening, you overhear two women practicing a new song. It's cheerful, but biting. Apparently, it's for the bride's former suitor, who is definitely not invited. The lyrics go, he wore sealskin, but not well. He hunted words, but none could spell. It's part roast, part ritual, and completely delightful. Again, the goal isn't cruelty, it's catharsis. Community bonding through rhythm and rhyme. You're beginning to notice a key pattern. In a place where silence is common and conversations must often be practical, don't step there. Eat this before it freezes. Song duels create a space for emotional honesty. A strange kind of emotional theater carved out of ice and drum beats. One elder leans over during dinner and says with a wink, a song duel is like a snowstorm. If it's small, it passes quickly. If it's big, it leaves a new landscape. That's surprisingly deep for a man chewing on frozen fish with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever, but it sticks with you. You go to bed that night wrapped in furs, the distant sound of drum beats still humming under your thoughts. Maybe they're practicing. Maybe they're just remembering. Either way, they echo softly, like footsteps in snow that you can't see, but still feel. The morning greets you with a crisp silence and the smell of seal oil gently warming in a clay lamp. The kind of morning that feels like the world is holding its breath, the sky too shy to exhale. You blink your way into wakefulness, still thinking about the wedding lyrics from the night before, the way humor wrapped itself around pain and turned it into communal warmth. Today, you're told, there's a special gathering, a kind of inter-village festival. Not exactly the Met Gala, unless the Met Gala involved homemade parkas, dried fish delicacies, and freestyle emotional warfare via musical rhyme. But for the Inuit, this is a time to reconnect, trade, tell stories, and of course, settle disputes with song. You ride out with a group heading east along a windswept trail marked by ancient cairns. These stone markers, called Inuit, are more than just Arctic road signs. Some were believed to carry spirits. Others simply said, go this way or fall into a crevasse. Either way, you follow obediently. As you travel, someone hums a low, rhythmic melody. You ask what it is. A waiting song, they reply. That's new. Turns out songs aren't just for dueling or celebrating. They're for everything. Walking, hunting, nursing, even boredom. The tradition of integrating music into everyday life is older than any written record in the Arctic. Music doesn't interrupt life here. It accompanies it, like a loyal sled dog padding along beside you. You arrive at the gathering site, a broad snowy basin framed by gently rolling hills. Snow huts, iglooit, dot the space like marshmallows on a tundra hot chocolate. Families have come from all directions, some from hundreds of miles away, and the energy is palpable. One elder announces that there will be friendly performances tonight. Not all will be duels. Some will be comedic recaps of winter mishaps. Think of it like Open Mic Night meets Survivor, Arctic Edition. A few are even love songs, composed by bashful teenagers whose idea of flirting involves clever insults about snowshoe technique. Historians still argue whether these larger gatherings were originally spiritual, economic, or simply social. Some say they arose purely from practical needs, trading goods, finding marriage partners, swapping news. Others believe they served as cultural calibration points where traditions were reinforced and identities sharpened. But everyone agrees on one thing: these were events of joy, of renewal. And beneath the layers of fur and formality, there was anticipation, even tension. Because at least one duel was always bound to turn heads. As the sun lazily rolls sideways along the horizon, it doesn't rise or set so much as shuffle. You're ushered into the main snow house. Inside, it's warm, dimly lit by oil lamps, and filled with people. Children giggle, elders settle into corners with the air of judges at a talent show they helped invent. Then it begins. The first duel is playful. Two hunters argue via song over who really caught the most foxes last season. Their verses are full of innuendo about traps, footprints, and suspiciously identical pelts. The crowd laughs easily. Someone shouts, "Tell him about the one-eyed fox." The singer grins, launches into a new verse. Apparently, the fox in question doubled back and stole one man's lunch. But the main event, the one that makes the room lean forward, is different. It's between two sisters. No one tells you what the dispute is about exactly, but the tension is unmistakable. Their opening verses are sharp but melodic, not angry, focused, like two birds circling the same worm. One sings about patience. The other replies with lines about those who wait too long finding only bones. The subtext is thicker than the seal stew you're nursing. And then something strange happens. They start harmonizing, not fully, but in those overlapping dissonant ways that Kajak Inuit throat singing uses to build tension and release. The duel transforms from competition into something deeper, an expression, like a shared story being told in two accents. Your eyes flick around the room. Everyone's watching, not just for content, but for connection, the rhythm, the tone, the way a breath is held before a line drops, like snow poised on the edge of a roof. Finally, one of the sisters smiles, the other bows her head slightly. The crowd claps, not wildly, just enough. The duel is done, maybe the feud too. Afterward, you ask someone what it was about. Doesn't matter, they shrug. What matters is they sang it out, and that sticks with you. In a world where resources are few, where people rely on each other for everything from food to warmth to not losing their minds during polar night, it makes perfect sense. Conflict is dangerous, not just emotionally, literally. A broken community here could mean death. So the Inuit evolved a way to let anger out without burning bridges, to let competition bloom without ruining cooperation, to laugh at pain, to dress grief in metaphor, to give even the most wounded pride a stage and a drumbeat. You walk out of the snow house that night, stars turning overhead like shy dancers. You realize that here, people don't bury feelings, they sing them. And tomorrow, if someone still has an issue, well, there's always another song. You're starting to get the hang of things. Not the actual throat singing, mind you. You tried a little in private, and the sound you produced was somewhere between a wheezing accordion and a startled goat. But you're grasping the rhythm of life here, how things fold gently into each other like snowflakes drifting into a snowdrift. Story into song, quarrel into comedy, silence into music. This morning, as you chew a piece of dried caribou meat that could double as furniture, you're invited to help with an important task, building a gegik, a communal snow structure. It's like a giant igloo, but instead of housing a family, it houses festivities. Think Arctic Airbnb with a 4-star rating in storytelling. You trudge out with the others, snow squeaking underfoot like polite applause. Building with snow isn't just stacking, it's carving, measuring, testing the quality of packed powder, reading its density by the feel of a knife slicing into it. Snow, it turns out, has moods. Some snow is cooperative, some is flaky, literally and emotionally. As the kagik takes shape, stories fill the air. Someone tells of a hunter who once tried to duel his way out of forgetting his wife's birthday. Spoiler, he lost both the duel and, temporarily, the privilege of sleeping indoors. Another mentions that in some regions, singing duels weren't just performed, they were memorized. Generations carried verses forward like heirlooms. Imagine inheriting your great-grandmother's feud with someone's great-uncle and being expected to sing about it in public centuries later. No pressure. Historians still argue whether these inherited duels serve more as entertainment or true social resolution. Did singing really heal disputes or just offer a musical ceasefire? There's no consensus, but in cultures where long winters trapped everyone together for months, avoiding open hostility was more than polite. It was survival. Once the kajik is done, people begin to prepare. Seal oil lamps are set up. Snow benches are softened with caribou hides. Children practice little songs in corners, giggling as they exaggerate their rivals' weaknesses. One boy is crafting a whole song around how his cousin eats too slowly, rhyming blubber with mutter. But tonight's highlight is whispered everywhere. A famous singer has arrived. You don't catch her name, maybe no one says it, but everyone calls her the Storm. She's an elder now, eyes sharp and voice like wind scouring through mountains. They say she once ended a blood feud with nothing but a verse about fish guts. She's small, wrapped in a dark parka with silver beadwork that shimmers in the low firelight. And when she steps forward to begin, the kajik falls completely still. She starts slow. The song is clearly old, older than anyone in the room. It has the sound of something pulled from deep memory, like a scent that unlocks a childhood afternoon. It's about two villages, a winter, a betrayal over a broken sled. But the verses are metaphors. The sled becomes a heart, the snow a silence, the ice a barrier that only words can melt. She switches between spoken word and song, her voice rising and falling like a snowdrift breathing. The most astonishing part is when another voice joins her, from the crowd, a younger woman. At first you think it's planned, but the hesitation in her tone says otherwise. The Storm pauses, turns her head slightly, and then smiles. It becomes a duet, a real one. Not competitive, a weaving of two melodies, two perspectives. The younger woman, you later learn, is her granddaughter. They'd had a falling out last year, something about a misinterpreted message and a poorly smoked fish. And now, they're singing it out. And the song ends in soft, shared laughter. No big bows, no applause, just the kind of quiet that says, that was enough. You sit for a long while after, watching the oil lamps flicker against snow walls. It strikes you how different this is from the world you came from. Back home, disputes get bottled up or explode in ways that leave real cracks. But here in this frozen community, sound carries healing. Of course, not every duel solves things. One woman tells you, half laughing, how she and her sister have been dueling over a long-lost mitten for years. They keep adding new verses to the song every winter. It's now longer than Beowulf and probably more entertaining. You think about the practicality of it all, using song as steam valve. How clever it is, how human. We may be thousands of miles from skyscrapers and email and social media, but the core emotions, same as ever. Jealousy, pride, affection, frustration, it all lives here, just with snow and singing instead of texts and subtweets. Later that night, you lie on a hide mat, eyes half-lidded. The kajik is quiet now, save for the rhythmic breathing of others around you and the low murmur of the wind. You hum a line you remember from earlier. It sticks in your throat, but gently. It's not much, but it's a start. Wake to the sound of muffled humming. Not the melodic kind that leads into a dream. No, this is the hum of purposeful activity, of snow being packed and boots thumping, and someone trying to get a stubborn pot of stew to behave over a seal oil flame. It's still dark, of course. Here in the Arctic winter, dawn is more of a polite suggestion than an actual event. You emerge from the kajik, blinking against the snow glow, and spot a group gathered around a sled, not for travel, but for practice. Today, some of the younger folks are preparing for an informal duel. The whole village, it seems, enjoys a bit of friendly competition, even if the stakes are no higher than bragging rights and maybe the last helping of fermented walrus. This is your chance to learn the finer points of the art. You're ushered toward a ring of women sitting cross-legged in the snow. One of them pats the space beside her, and in the calm, no-nonsense tone of someone who's broken up at least 5 polar bear chases in her lifetime, she begins to explain. Duets, or katajak, aren't simply about singing. There are games, contests, flirtations, and sometimes even verbal therapy. Two singers face each other, often nose to nose. The goal? Outlast your opponent without laughing, running out of breath, or stumbling on your rhythm. She demonstrates a few phrases. They loop, they chirp, they rasp. It's like a symphony composed by wind, owls, and the occasional congested wolf. You try one. You fail spectacularly. The sound you make has less ancestral harmony and more blender full of marbles. But no one mocks you. Instead, someone starts imitating you. And now everyone's laughing, but gently. You've just become a verse in someone's next song. Congratulations, you've made it. There's a particular kind of comfort in being roasted via ancient tradition. Later, you observe a proper duel, two teenage girls locked in a vocal standoff that sounds like Arctic techno. It's rapid, breathy, with syncopated throat pulses that sound almost electronic. Their eyes sparkle. Their cheeks are flushed with cold and focus. The rhythm builds. One falters, just slightly. She giggles, and that's it. Round over. Victory goes to the other, who raises her arms like a snow-dusted champion. The loser mock grumbles and immediately challenges a cousin to a rematch. The adults watch fondly. Someone nudges you and explains that for generations, this was how Inuit girls developed social confidence. Boys had hunting and wrestling. Girls had the vocal battlefield. It wasn't always about conflict. Sometimes it was just about presence, volume, breath, endurance, a way to literally make your voice heard. Historians still debate how strictly gendered this tradition was. Some claim only women performed katajak. Others argue that men participated too, especially in smaller or more isolated communities. The reality? Likely both. Culture, after all, is a living thing, pliable as snow, and just as subject to reshaping. You're invited to try again. This time, a young boy volunteers to face you. He's about 8, has the face of an angel and the voice of a small, determined chainsaw. You hold out for 3 rounds before wheezing out a laugh. The kid grins like he just won the World Cup, which in his world, he has. Later, the elders explain how these vocal games weren't just fun, they were functional. A way to keep warm, keep fit, and keep sane during long, lightless months. Your diaphragm gets a workout, your mood lifts, you bond with the person across from you, perhaps the only other human you'll see for days during a storm. In a world where talking things out wasn't always the norm, katajak gave space for expression. You could tease someone for slacking off on a seal hunt without actually accusing them. You could call attention to someone's stinky boots with poetic finesse, a safe pressure valve for social tension. One elder recalls a duel that lasted nearly an hour, not because either woman was especially good, but because they were both too stubborn to stop. It only ended when one of their infants started crying, and they both broke to coo at it in unison. Now that's multitasking. The day wears on with more duels, more laughter, more impromptu songs about seal guts, misdelivered fish, and one notorious cousin who apparently once mistook a raven for a girlfriend. That story's still going strong, many winters later. At nightfall, again, more of a soft dimming than a true transition, the community gathers for another round inside the kajik. Tonight, though, there's a new element: mimic duels. These take the standard throat singing rhythm and overlay impressions of animals, tools, even other people. One woman starts with the sound of cracking sea ice. Another responds with the wheeze of a half-broken dog sled runner. Then comes the master impressionist, an elder who performs to absolute delight, a perfect mimicry of a man trying not to admit he's lost in a snowstorm. Every puff, cough, muttered curse, and exaggerated confidence stride is recreated in sound. You laugh so hard you almost forget where you are. But the snow beneath you reminds you, the faint scent of oil lamp smoke, the gentle sighs from nearby listeners. You're not just watching history, you're inside it. This isn't a reenactment. It's a memory kept alive by practice, by joy, and by the very human need to connect, even when surrounded by ice and silence. And as the songs fade out and the crowd settles in for another night in the Snow Cave Theater, you find your breath sinking with the rhythm of others. A lullaby without words, just breath and warmth and peace. The snow has softened overnight. It no longer crunches underfoot, but gives with a sigh like it's too tired to resist. You stretch, blink, and sniff the air. Fresh snow, faint blubber stew, and something new, charcoal smoke, curling from a pit where someone's been sketching seals in the ashes for fun. Today, you learn how disputes, real ones, get sung away. It begins quietly. Two older men, longtime friends, have had a disagreement. You're not told exactly what it's about, but it's apparently gone on long enough that the village needs to deal with it. Back home, this might mean mediation, or maybe a tense email with 17 BCCs. Here, it means song. An elder approaches both men, calmly, with all the gravity of someone choosing sides for a snowball war that could end civilization. He speaks softly. Both nod. One grumbles something that makes the elder chuckle. And just like that, the wheels are in motion. Tonight, there will be an official song duel. No punches, no lawyers, no apologies, just singing. You help set up the kajik. Blankets are arranged for comfort. Lamps are refilled. A few young cousins carve humorous faces into blocks of snow outside, a kind of Arctic mood lighting. People are excited, but not in a bloodsport way, more like when your favorite drama series drops a new episode and everyone's wondering who will win the argument by turning it into a sick beat. The dueling men sit opposite each other, not face to face like in Katajak, but side by side. There's no mic, of course, just vocal strength and community curiosity. One begins. The tune is low and steady, like ice creaking underfoot. He sings about a borrowed sled never returned, a hunting trip missed, a seal distributed unfairly. But it's not angry, more amused, like he knows he's being a little dramatic for effect. He exaggerates a few gestures, snorts theatrically, gets a good laugh from the crowd. You glance around. Some nod, some giggle, some look entirely unsurprised. Apparently, this feud's been going on since the last ice age. Then the second man responds. His melody is bouncier, teasing. He mocks the first man's version of events, suggests he forgot the sled on purpose, claims he only missed the hunt because he was covering for this guy's slow dogs. A few people cheer. Someone's grandmother cackles so hard she wheezes. It goes back and forth like this for half an hour. Neither man breaks rhythm. They perform like seasoned comedians with strong lungs and even stronger memories. They dredge up old snowball fights, fishing flubs, a shared girlfriend from decades ago, gently, diplomatically handled, and, most controversially, a legendary pot of burnt caribou stew that nobody wants to claim responsibility for. You find yourself nodding along. The rhythm, the back and forth structure, it's familiar. Modern rap battles echo this, roast comedy, even courtroom dramas. But here there's no winner or loser, just the slow untangling of pride. Historians still debate where the Inuit song duel tradition truly originated. Was it an indigenous innovation, or did it develop alongside or in reaction to neighboring tribes' customs? Some suggest it's part of a broader circumpolar pattern, echoes of similar dispute resolution seen in Sami or Chukchi communities. Others argue it's uniquely Inuit, sharpened by necessity and the demands of communal survival. What's certain? It works. By the time the last note fades, both men are smiling. Not a Hollywood-style hug-it-out smile. More like, all right, fine, you're still annoying, but I remember why we're friends kind of smile. The crowd claps, not raucously, just warmly. The way you might applaud a child's bedtime performance of Hamlet, if that Hamlet involved a lot of burping impressions and fake tripping. Afterwards, someone passes out fermented berries. The disputants toast each other with small cups, tapping the rims like drumsticks before downing the drink. And that's that. Conflict dissolved like snowflakes on a warm palm. You ask someone how often these duels happen. They shrug. Whenever two people forget they love each other. That'll stay with you. As the night settles in, you reflect on how rare this is. A society where grievances aren't denied or hidden, but sung. Where words don't escalate into silence or violence, but into something creative, shareable, even funny. Imagine if corporate meetings ended with a throat-sung roast. Imagine if politics required duets. Maybe we'd all sleep better. You notice two children mimicking the duel from earlier, substituting sled stealing with toy sharing disputes. One starts a chant about someone always taking the last dried fish snack. The other fires back with a verse about smelly mittens. The crowd laughs again. And somewhere in the middle of it you realize, this is education. This is culture passed on, not through lectures or rules, but rhythm, humor, and song. By now, your throat aches just listening. You drink something warm from a seal hide cup. It tastes like burnt licorice and ambition. You don't ask what it is. Outside, snow begins to fall again. Soft, slow, in no particular rush to get anywhere. The elder who arranged the duel approaches you with a twinkle in his eye. Next time, he says, maybe you settle your own problems with a song. You nod, unsure if you're being warned or encouraged. Either way, you start composing lyrics in your head. Something about how socks mysteriously vanish in the night, or how that one neighbor always clears snow just slightly onto your side. You're ready. Almost. By now, your ears are attuned to every puff of wind, every crunch of snow, every quiet throat clear that precedes an improvised song. Life here seems built on sound, not noise, but sound. Purposeful, rich, deeply human sound. You wake to a chorus of voices. No, not singing this time. Laughter, casual chatter, and the low hum of someone rubbing stone against bone. You're in for another lesson today, but not about conflict or ceremony. Today it's food, specifically what and how the Inuit eat. Spoiler, it's not trail mix. You follow your hosts out of the Karmak and head toward the edge of a frozen inlet. A group is gathering there, young and old, sleeves rolled up, eyes squinting in the pale light. A seal has just been caught. It's laid out with reverence on a blanket of snow. You tense for a moment, unsure how graphic this will get, but the moment is handled with quiet dignity. This is survival, after all, not spectacle. As preparations begin, someone invites you closer. A woman with a round face and a mischievous look holds out a slice of something translucent and pinkish white. Try it, she says. It's muktuk. Ah, muktuk, the classic. Whale skin with a thick layer of blubber. Chewy, cold, slightly nutty, oddly creamy. You bite in and immediately understand why this is both a delicacy and a test of willpower. It's not unpleasant, just defiant. Like food that says, I dare you. Beside her, a child slurps on something red. It's raw seal liver. You raise an eyebrow. They say it makes you strong, the woman explains, grinning, and possibly immortal. You smile politely and pass on immortality for now. Historians still argue about the full nutritional profile of the traditional Inuit diet. What's certain is that it defied Western expectations for decades. In fact, early explorers assumed the Inuit must be secretly farming, because how could a diet of meat and fat sustain entire communities through brutal winters? Turns out, extremely well. Their high-fat, high-protein intake, especially from marine mammals, meant access to essential nutrients often lacking in Western diets. Think omega-3s, vitamin D, and more iron than a Viking sword collection. You sit near the seal hunters as they prepare the rest of the meat. Every part is used: skin, blubber, organs, even the blood. Nothing wasted. It's the culinary opposite of a fast food combo meal, where most of the food's purpose is just to keep your hands busy between bites of regret. A young man begins heating rocks in a fireless pot, a traditional method of warming meat without flames. He explains how boiling is done using nothing but hot stones dropped into water-filled containers. This kind of low-tech, high-ingenuity cooking makes your fancy air fryer look like a temperamental diva. Suddenly, a debate breaks out. Not angry, just animated. Two elders are arguing about whether the best way to ferment fish heads is in a stone cache or a seal bladder. You don't get a translation, but the gestures are clear. One pantomimes a bursting bag and the other slaps his thigh with theatrical despair. The group howls with laughter. Later, you learn about kiviak, a winter delicacy involving seabirds stuffed into a seal skin, buried and left to ferment for months. You imagine pitching that on a cooking show. Tonight, we're layering little auks inside our artisanal blubber casing. Great for parties, unsettling for guests. Despite its strong smell, controversial flavor, kiviak is a prized dish at special occasions. It's not just food, it's a reminder that survival here is deeply tied to community rituals, humor, and the willingness to eat things your ancestors swore were a good idea. One woman tells you about a festival where fermented walrus was once left out too long and became a punchline for a year. We said it aged like your uncle's jokes, she laughs. Rotten but hard to ignore. And here comes your mainstream history fact. In the 1940s, Canadian medical teams studying Inuit health expected to find high rates of heart disease due to their fatty diets. Instead, they found almost none. Decades later, this led to the global omega-3 craze. Suddenly, fish oil was fashionable. Supplements flew off shelves, and Inuit grandmothers just shrugged like you could have just asked. Still, not everything is perfect. Modern pressures have changed food access. Climate change affects hunting grounds. Store-bought food, expensive and often unhealthy, competes with traditional diets. Younger generations juggle the old and the new, trying to keep traditions alive without romanticizing struggle. You feel the tension in the air as another topic emerges. Whether the next generation still has the patience to prepare food the old way. Some nod solemnly, others wave it off. One man jokes, "My daughter microwaved dried fish once. The spirits haven't forgiven us yet." You laugh, but the point is clear. This isn't just food, it's identity. And identity, like fermentation, takes time. You help clean up after the meal, rinse tools in the snow, fold seal hides neatly. Someone teaches you to properly sharpen an ulu, the curved women's knife used for cutting meat, skin, even hair. You hold it with respect. It fits your hand like it's supposed to tell a story. As dusk thickens, everyone retreats inside. The air smells of fat lamps and warm broth. You sit cross-legged beside the elder who gave you the muktuk. "You did good today," she says. "Didn't spit it out." You grin. Progress. Later, you try to write a haiku about the taste of seal liver. It mostly turns into a limerick about regret and bravery. Outside, a pot bubbles. Children roast something mysterious on stick. The night deepens, but no one seems to be sleeping yet. A soft murmur fills the karmak, people murmuring stories, giggling over remembered mishaps, and sometimes lapsing into a silence so thick you'd swear it could be scooped up and served like snow pudding. You lie back, belly full of unexpected protein, and let your eyes follow the flicker of the oil lamp's flame. But just as you're drifting into dream territory, there's a stir at the door. Someone's poked their head in and announced, "It's time." You sit up, because apparently something is always time in this village. This time, it's games. Specifically, traditional Inuit strength and endurance games. The kind that make CrossFit look like kindergarten nap time. You step outside, breath-puffing clouds, and find yourself surrounded by excited chatter and clapping mittened hands. You're led to the center of the gathering. A ring of spectators forms. The first event? The ear pull. Yes, the ear pull. It is exactly what it sounds like. Two contestants sit on the ground facing each other, connected by a loop of sinew that hooks behind one ear each. On the count of 3, they lean back and pull until someone gives up, yelps, or loses an ear to science. Not really, but it sure looks like it might happen. You wince just watching, but the crowd? Delighted. This is not just entertainment. It's a centuries-old test of pain tolerance and resilience. Inuit communities, after all, have always valued the ability to endure discomfort with grace, and possibly while giggling, someone nudges you. "You next?" You wave them off. "I'm, allergic to sinew." Next up, the 1-foot-high kick. A player jumps with both feet, aiming to strike a suspended ball or seal with one foot, land on the same foot, and not wipe out in front of their crush. You watch a wiry teen leap gracefully into the air, smack the target, and land perfectly. The crowd erupts into soft cheers. None of that chest-thumping stadium noise here. Just warm pride. Historians still argue whether these strength games were originally created as training for hunting or more for ceremonial bonding. Likely both. Whatever the origin, they persist today, even featured in the Arctic Winter Games, where athletes from northern regions gather to see who can kick, pull, and shout, "Ow," the best. You try the muskox push. It's a game where two people crouch low, arms tucked in, and attempt to push each other out of a circle using only shoulders. It feels silly, like sumo wrestling meets toddler tantrum, but it's harder than it looks. You last 3 seconds. Pretty good for someone whose last athletic achievement was winning a 7th grade spelling bee by accident. There's also the seal hop, a sort of push-up scoot combo that mimics a seal's movement on the ice. It's used to develop stealth and endurance. You watch someone do it across the packed snow for what feels like a mile. You give them a thumbs up from your seated position. Supportive, if not involved. Another event, quieter but no less important, is the game of storytelling. Yes, here, storytelling is treated as a game, a skill to be honed, with points given for pacing, imagination, humor, and the ability to hold an audience in rapt attention. A small circle forms. A man with a face like a weathered boot begins telling a story about a woman who turned into a narwhal to escape her mother-in-law. He speaks slowly, rhythmically, pausing for laughs and gasps at just the right moments. Everyone leans in. The punchline? The narwhal came back each winter and stared judgmentally through the ice. The room loses it. Laughter bounces off the snow walls. Even you, culturally confused but fully on board, chuckle. You're starting to get it. This isn't just play, it's preservation. These games, stories, and competitions are how knowledge is passed down without a textbook in sight. The wind outside begins to pick up. A distant howl. Someone remarks casually, "Just the wind," or "my mother singing." Everyone laughs again. Here comes your mainstream history fact. The Inuit games weren't just about amusement. They were often used to resolve tensions or disputes, especially among young men who might otherwise clash. Better to pull each other's ears than knives. These games diffused conflict, reinforced community bonds, and ensured that the most competitive members learned humility, or at least ear pain. You think back to the Sung Duets, the Katajak, and realize it's all part of the same system, a culture rooted in performance, participation, and a slightly mischievous sense of fairness. Someone tries to explain the rules of neck pulling to you. You pretend to understand, but secretly hope it never becomes mandatory. As the evening wears on, the games taper off. A few stragglers try one last high kick under the stars, but most folks head indoors for warmth and sleep. You linger outside for a moment. The moon reflects off the snow with a shimmer that feels almost theatrical. Somewhere in the distance, a lullaby is being hummed. You didn't win any ear-based competitions tonight, but you learned that in the far north, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it pulls softly, gently, insistently, just like sinew on sleep is calling, but not before one more twist in the night's festivities. As you duck back into the Karmak, brushing snow from your parka, someone is crouched near the fire holding what appears to be a carved ivory game board. It's been smoothed over by hundreds of hands, the bone surface creamy and warm in the firelight. The player beckons you over. "Ever played Ajagak?" they ask, holding up a small bone attached to a string. You shake your head, more than a little suspicious. "Is this going to involve pain?" "No pain," they laugh, "just reflexes." Ajagak is a traditional Inuit game that from the outside looks a bit like juggling mixed with catching, while shouting things at your opponent. You try it. The bone goes flying across the room. A dog barks in alarm. You apologize to no one in particular and shuffle away as your score settles firmly at 0. While Ajagak is entertaining, it had real-world roots. It trained hunters to track fast-moving prey across chaotic terrain. The sudden twists of wrist, the need to track motion without hesitation, it's less a toy, more like a lesson disguised as fun. Historians still debate the origins of many of these small games. Some argue they came from Siberian influence. Others suggest they're wholly indigenous developments, part of a larger Arctic web of playful survival. You settle back into the warm furs, still watching the flickering game near the fire. The rhythm of it lulls you. Someone begins to sing, not Katajak this time, but a softer solo tune, a song for rest, for winding down. And then with a murmur, someone mentions something unexpected, a visitor from the south. Now your ears perk up. The whole room seems to lean in. The story begins. A tall man with pale skin and wide eyes had arrived 2 winters ago, brought in half frozen by a seal hunting party. He'd been adrift, lost during an ill-fated mapping expedition. He thought the sun rose in the north. Someone chuckles. This man, apparently a European surveyor from some overly confident naval program, was not prepared for the Arctic. His maps were mostly wrong, his boots too soft, and his food rations consisted of condensed milk and a crate of pickles. He'd also brought a camera, a journal, and an intense curiosity. And while he could barely ski, he could draw like a dream. That winter, he stayed, traded sketchbooks for caribou meat, joined Katajak duets with all the enthusiasm of a tipsy polar bear, tried and failed at the ear pull. The community gently tolerated his flailing, feeding him stories and occasionally correcting his wild misconceptions. By spring, he had inked an entire series of illustrations, portraits of people, dogs, kayaks, games, the way the moonlight caught on snowbanks. Some of those sketches, you're told, now rest in a forgotten drawer in a museum archive somewhere in Montreal, labeled simply Unverified Arctic Cultural Depictions. The storyteller leans in close. "We called him Uksinak, the one who stares too much." The room chuckles. You wonder what happened to him. "Well," says your neighbor, "he left with tears in his eyes and frostbite on 3 toes. but he said he'd never forget the games. This isn't just a tale of culture clash, it's a reminder of how flexible Inuit communities had to be. The Arctic doesn't allow for stubbornness. Strangers were sometimes welcomed not because they were useful, but because kindness itself is a survival tool when you live on the edge of the world. Back in your blankets, you think about that. How these people had turned hardship into strength, survival into rhythm, and play into pedagogy. Mainstream history tends to focus on European explorers and their glorious failures. You know, the "oops, we died in the snow, but at least someone named a glacier after us" crowd. But here the history is quieter and far more successful. These are stories of people who adapted, who sang when others would scream, who saw life as a balance between endurance and joy. Outside, a light snow begins to fall. The wind hushes down to a gentle whisper. Someone has lit another lamp, casting long, sleepy shadows on the walls. A child is already curled up, drooling into their sleeve. An elder nods off mid-sentence. You're tempted to do the same. But before sleep takes you, your brain offers one last observation. That everything here, the games, the songs, the duels, even the misadventures of poor Uksinak, are part of an unbroken tradition. Nothing in this place is done by accident. Every move, every melody, every bone thrown on a game board has meaning. Even play is sacred. And you, southern wanderer that you are, have been allowed a front row seat. You smile into the dark. When you wake, if you can call this dreamy drifting waking, the room is dim and someone's just tossed a fresh chunk of fat into the kulik, the traditional oil lamp that glows soft and amber. You've been dreaming of bones, not ominously, just clean, polished ones, stacked like puzzle pieces into tools, toys, and musical instruments. A snow-white architecture of survival. The community is stirring for another task. A woman nudges you gently and gestures outside. You trudge through snow that whispers underfoot, following the group to a low ridge near the water's edge. There, someone begins tracing something into the snow with a long stick. The lines are surprisingly geometric, overlapping loops, zigzag patterns, even something that resembles a fish. It's a snow map. Yes, a literal topographic rendering scratched into snow, used to communicate upcoming travels, dangerous crevices, and the location of seal holes. These ephemeral maps disappear with the wind, but not before passing vital information. Historians still argue whether such snow etchings count as cartography in the Western sense, but that's kind of like asking whether beatboxing counts as music because it doesn't involve a harp. These snow maps are fleeting, yes, but deeply informative, and they tell you more than directions. The way the lines twist implies how fast the sled should move, whether dogs should go single file, or if travelers should be silent, just in case a polar bear is lurking nearby. It's GPS meets interpretive dance. There's a brief stop as someone points out an old stone marker nearby. You learn it's an Inuksuk, those famous human-shaped stacks of rocks. But not all Inuksuk are human-shaped. Some are directional, some mark sacred sites, and some are just reminders that someone was here. This particular one has a story attached. Apparently, it was built by a grandmother who was tired of her son getting lost on hunting trips. She made it resemble a mother holding her arms out. The son never got lost again. And you think, well, nothing motivates architecture quite like maternal disappointment. As the snow map is completed, another detail emerges. A tiny carved charm, about the size of your thumbnail, is being tied to the lead dog's harness. Luck, someone murmurs. It's shaped like a seal's flipper and made from walrus ivory. These amulets vary from family to family. Some depict whales. Some are tiny tools. Others are abstract, meant to confuse evil spirits or just show off a craftsman's skill. Here's the part no one tells you in textbooks. These charms are sometimes passed down for generations. One small charm might have seen dozens of winters, dozens of hunting trips, and more than a few spiritual arguments. You're reminded of a theory you once read, that amulets weren't just spiritual objects, but mnemonic devices. That is, they help people remember which route to take or which song to sing in certain weather, like ancient USB drives dangling from a dog collar. Historians still argue about that too, but as one elder shrugs beside you, it's all memory. We just put it in different places. And suddenly you feel surrounded by memory, not just personal, but cultural, collective, embedded in tools, games, carvings, Inuksuk, and yes, even snow maps. The modern world is big on archiving, on documenting, digitizing, tagging things in cloud folders. The Arctic, it archives in your hands and what you carve and what you carry. Your sled is a filing cabinet, your parka an encyclopedia of stitched wisdom. You start to appreciate how nothing here is ever just anything. That bone comb may be used in rituals. That snow knife doubles as a musical instrument. That child's doll, stuffed with medicinal moss. Multi-use isn't a hack, it's the law. As you wander back toward camp, the snow underfoot crunches in a perfect tempo, and suddenly you hear someone humming. Not a Kadajok duet this time, just a solo tune. Wordless but rhythmic. It rises and falls like waves. The melody isn't loud, just persistent, and it keeps time with the footsteps. You ask what it is. Travel song, they tell you. Keeps the dogs moving, keeps us from thinking about cold feet. Turns out, these songs are often built from inside jokes, sounds of local wildlife, or even impressions of other villages. Some are outright silly, like imitations of a walrus trying to sing opera. But they serve a serious function: rhythm, morale, and orientation. One older hunter confesses that he once composed an entire song based on the burp of a particularly noisy elder. Sounded like a broken drum, he says. But it worked, got us across the pass. It's all interconnected here. Songs help travel. Maps melt away but linger in memory. A single rock pile can guide your soul, not just your sled. You're starting to understand that Inuit survival isn't just about muscle and endurance, it's about memory, pattern, repetition, meaning layered onto meaning like seal fat on skin. Everything is encoded. And as you look up, the stars are flickering into view. You spot Orion's belt. But here, it has a different name. You're still humming that travel song the next morning, long after the rhythm of footsteps and sled runners has faded from your ears. Back inside the igloo, the air is thick with the smell of boiled fish and seal. A young girl offers you a bowl carved from caribou antler, slightly chipped but lovingly polished. You sip. It's warm, oily, salty. Not exactly five-star cuisine, but honestly, your stomach sighs with gratitude. One of the elders begins speaking, and someone translates softly for you. He's recounting an old story about a time the sea ice broke early, stranding hunters miles from home. No food, no dogs, just snow and memory. They survived, he says, by singing home. You raise an eyebrow. Singing? Apparently, it's not just metaphor. The hunters chanted songs encoded with directions: turn at the three-humped ridge, cross the lake where it groans the loudest, and each beat matched a step or turn. Kind of like ancient musical GPS, but with frostbite as your consequence for skipping a note. Historians still debate whether these oral cartographies were deliberate creations or happy accidents. Some argue they began as playful chants that slowly fossilized into directional guides. Others think they were intentional from the start, a song you could pass down long after a map had blown away. Either way, you imagine getting lost in a blizzard and belting out a folk tune just to remember which way not to die. Kind of romantic. In a hypothermic, frost-nipped sort of way. One elder leans over and adds, sometimes we'd get it wrong and end up at someone else's camp. What did you do then, you ask? He shrugs. We sang louder, made new friends. The idea lingers with you, that mistakes, even deadly ones, could become songs. That history isn't always tragedy. It's sometimes just a plot twist with a beat. Someone opens a sealskin pouch and pulls out a bundle of sinew-bound carvings, miniature animals, people, and tools. They're explained as memory aids, like a portable museum that fits in your mitten. These are not toys. Well, okay, some are definitely toys. But others? Teaching tools. This one, you're told, is a hunter sneezing. Why? Because once a man scared away a whole herd that way. His wife carved it to shame him forever. You laugh, but there's admiration in your voice. Turns out, satire makes for excellent pedagogy. The carvings pass around the room. A little ivory fish sparks a tangent about the old fishing holes and how some winters they'd use a dog bladder as a float. Worked great until it popped, says someone with a chuckle. Fish scattered like we'd tossed a grenade. Quirky, yes, but resourceful. That's the word that keeps circling you now, resourceful. There's no junk drawer in the Arctic. No, we'll toss this and order another online. Every scrap matters. Old boot liners become insulation. Worn mittens are repurposed as sled padding. Even broken tools are sharpened into something new, like the philosophical version of reduce, reuse, recycle. You pause to inspect a comb made from bone beautifully symmetrical. Each tooth is fine, almost delicate. It was used to remove lice, sure, but also to etch patterns onto snow goggles or soften tough hides. This comb has more skills than you do. You sit near the lamp and begin gently humming a few bars of Katajak, the bits you can remember from the night before. Two women hear you and smile. They come closer, nodding, and then they start again. This time you listen deeper. You notice their shoulders sway in sync. Their eyes never leave each other. The rhythm is different now, slower, more intimate, not performative, conversational. It hits you then. Katajak isn't just music. It's a code, a challenge, a collaboration, an argument and an apology and a joke all at once. Historians still debate the original function of Katajak. Was it a lullaby for babies, a pastime for women while men hunted, a way to vent frustrations with each other in a form that wouldn't destroy community peace? Whatever its purpose, the effect is hypnotic, and you realize nothing in this world is idle. Not the songs, not the tools, not even the jokes. Everything does something. Everything carries weight, even if it fits in a pocket. As the duet fades out, someone whispers, "Your turn." You blink. Me? You try, of course. You press your lips together. You mimic a raven's croak, then a beluga whistle, and then you break down laughing halfway through your best impression of a snowshoe hare. The women crack up. You fail gloriously, and you feel oddly proud of that, because here failure isn't shameful, it's how you're remembered. In stories, in carvings, in songs sung by grandkids who don't even know your name, but remember that time you tried to sound like a seal and nearly swallowed your uvula. You lean back, heart lighter than it's been in days. Outside, the snow has begun falling in thick, lazy flakes, the kind that take their time, the kind that blanket sound until all that's... You're back outside again, wrapped in furs so thick you've stopped distinguishing between coat and sleeping bag. The wind's gone soft, no longer slicing, just whispering through the snowdrifts like a nosy neighbor. The village is quieter today. Fewer sleds moving, more smoke curling from chimneys. You walk past someone carefully scraping a sealskin, the rhythmic shh of the blade like the world's slowest DJ remix. A dog stretches nearby, yawns, and doesn't even lift its head to acknowledge your existence. You've officially been accepted. A younger hunter joins you, offering a small bundle wrapped in caribou leather. Inside, a snow knife. Bone handle, soapstone blade, edge so sharp you could shave an icicle. He explains it's used to build igloos, not cut enemies. Unless they insult your singing, he jokes. You both chuckle, the kind of chuckle that carries layers. Yes, it's a joke, but also, don't mess with Katajak. He invites you to follow him to an old ice ridge. You agree, mainly because your other option was helping Auntie remove seal oil stains from the floor, and she has the aura of a woman who takes floors very seriously. As you walk, he talks. Stories spill out like thawed tea. The time a fox stole their winter socks. The near tragedy of a misplaced harpoon that turned out to be under the sled the whole time. And a mysterious night when the northern lights spoke. That last one makes you stop. They spoke? He nods seriously. We were kids. Thought it was wind, but it hummed like Lo Katajak. You glance up. The aurora's not out yet, but the sky has that expectant glow, like it's backstage waiting for cue. Turns out, many Inuit elders believe the aurora has a voice. Not a metaphorical one, a real, audible tone. Some say it sings, others say it cracks like frozen laughter. Scientists have since recorded faint sounds linked to geomagnetic activity, but nothing definitive. Historians still argue whether these reports were psychological, environmental, or just maybe true all along. Whatever the truth, you can't help but wonder what the lights would sing to you. The hunter starts building a tiny snow shelter, not a full igloo, just a windbreak dome. He does it fast, blocks of hard-packed snow, each shaped with practiced swipes. Like origami, but Arctic. You try to help and immediately carve a chunk that looks more like a rejected pizza slice. He smiles anyway and fits it in. You sit inside. It's surprisingly warm, quiet, just you, him, and the crunch of snow shifting under weight. It's like being in a snow globe no one's shaking. He pulls out a pouch. Dried fish strips. You chew them thoughtfully. They taste like someone salted the ocean's dreams. Not terrible. He tells you about a woman once known as the singer who melted ice. She wasn't a shaman, but people said her voice could stop blizzards. She never claimed credit, but when she died, the weather stayed still for 3 days. Just silence and morning snow. No one remembers her face now, just her nickname. That's enough, he says. Names fade, songs don't. You think about that, about how the Katajak duets aren't written down, just passed on. How memory here isn't archived, it's echoed, hummed, carved, improvised. And suddenly it all connects. This world doesn't fear forgetting. It designs for it. Every chant teaches. Every object encodes knowledge. Every song settles a score and trains the next duet. Even the carvings double as mnemonics. The past isn't buried under textbooks, it's just sung at dinner. As the sky darkens, the aurora appears. At first, faint swirls like someone stirring cold cream into a black coffee sky. Then stronger. Ribbons, drapes, curtains drawn by cosmic hands that clearly have a flair for drama. You and the hunter just sit and watch. No selfies, no narration, just shared silence. And then you lean forward, you whisper a little tune, the Katajak rhythm you barely half remember, but you sing anyway, quietly, into the wind. The hunter joins you, harmonizing softly. He adds a new beat, you follow. You laugh when you mess it up, and he keeps singing. That's the thing about these duets. You don't have to win them. Just survive the breath between. Just share the space. Just listen. Back at camp, someone's cooking again. You smell aged meat and something sweet, berries frozen in seal oil. Sounds weird, tastes like Arctic jam. The elder from before greets you, eyes twinkling. You sang to the lights? You nod. They didn't sing back. He grins. They never do, but they hear you. You don't sleep much that night. Not because it's uncomfortable. You're practically nestled in a goose-down cloud inside the snow house, but because the thoughts won't stop softly bouncing around your skull like snowflakes trying not to land. The aurora is still faintly glowing when you rise and slip out for a walk. You nod at a yawning dog. It blinks at you with the same weary admiration as someone watching a toddler try to microwave soup. In the pre-dawn hush, you find your way to a patch of ice the others call the echo floor. Smooth, wide, naturally formed. It's where they once practiced Katajak before the snow muffled everything. Now it's a memory slab. If you speak, your voice carries just long enough to hear it second-guess itself. You test it. Hi. Hi, it whispers back. A little less confident. You chuckle. Ice is a terrible hype man. A few others join you. The hunter from before, a woman carrying an ulu knife, and a boy no older than 10 who's clearly here to be but is surely important. They don't say much. Just stand beside you like co-stars in a movie no one's filming. That's the thing. Nothing here is performed for outsiders. You're not a guest anymore. You're just included. They begin singing, Katajak again, but this time it's not competitive. No play fight, no test, just harmony. Like the group is tuning itself back into alignment after sleep. You join, awkwardly at first, but they shift, gently adjusting their patterns to match your pace. Like dancers who refuse to let one person trip alone. You fall into the rhythm. It feels ancient and silly and sacred and giggly all at once. Like a lullaby that's also a debate. Like laughter you're allowed to live inside. And then it's over. No bow, no applause. Just a few head nods and one muttered, decent for a beginner. You're about to ask if it meant anything specific when the elder appears. His face is cracked like glacier rock, but kind. He hands you something, a thin polished ivory disc carved with spirals and dots. You recognize it. It's a memory token. Not a recording, but a physical reminder of a shared event. Something to hold when you need to remember. You don't ask why he's giving it to you. You know. He points to a nearby ice formation. It's got a name, the Listening Hill. Not because it echoes, but because it was believed to absorb stories. Generations ago, someone would whisper into a hollowed-out snowdrift, then pass the spot, trusting the wind to carry the tale. You figure if you told this story now, the snow might keep it, might tuck it somewhere soft. Later that morning, a woman teaches you the basic mechanics of carving throat-singing symbols, just etching rhythmic hints, not full scores. She laughs when you carve your first line too deep in its splinters. Your katajak is better than your carving, she says. High praise. You ask her if the tradition will last, if this strange, haunting, half-singing form will keep echoing. She shrugs. Only if we keep breathing. Simple as that. Culture, memory, identity, wrapped up in breath. You think about all the people in the world who yell to be heard, and here they whisper in harmony to remember. You begin to pack slowly. Your boots are stiffer. Your gloves smell like whale blubber and pride. As you prepare to leave, someone presses a package into your hand: dried fish, berries, and one carved walrus tusk flute. For your travels, they say. You don't ask how they know you'll need music again. You just nod. As the sled pulls away, pulled by dogs who somehow seem smug about it, you glance back at the village. No one's waving. That's not a thing here. Waving suggests parting. This place prefers echoes to goodbyes. The wind shifts. You swear you hear a faint duet. Or maybe it's just your breath bouncing around inside your memories. And as the snow swirls and the cold sinks into your bones like a quiet drumbeat, you hum one last line. Not to perform, just to remember, just to exist, just to echo. And now you let your body melt into stillness. The images soften: snow-sheltered villages, whispered songs drifting through ice, the shimmer of green and violet skies. They stretch and blur like watercolor left in the rain. The voices fade, not because they've gone, but because they found a place to rest. Breathe in, the kind of slow breath that starts in your toes and travels upward like the warmth of a fire catching hold. Exhale, and picture your thoughts following that breath out, gentle and unhurried, like smoke curling from a seal oil lamp. The cold isn't here now, just the quiet hush of snow you no longer feel. Only remember,